Hello, hello, and welcome to this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom. My name is Susanna, and today's topic is setting boundaries the HSP way. So, as you may know, I am recording right now a series of videos specifically targeting a highly sensitive audience. So, this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom, it's both about the personality trait of high sensitivity, and also about a wide variety of topics seen through the lens of high sensitivity. So right now we are focusing on, things that make life easier and more enjoyable, specifically for highly sensitive people. But then again, if you're not highly sensitive, yeah, some of the topics can still have value for you. Setting boundaries is something we all have to learn to master in our interactions with other people, especially in the workplace, but in all kinds of interactions and relationships with other people. So in today's video, I will be quoting from a very, very good book specifically for highly sensitive people. It's called Making Work for the Highly Sensitive Person by Barrie Jaeger, Ph.D. So I have already recommended this book in the welcome video from this channel, Highly Sensitive Wisdom. And I will be quoting specifically about setting boundaries and discuss a little bit why it could be difficult for highly sensitive people to set boundaries and some of the reframings we might need to do on a cognitive level, the level of our thinking, so that we don't have to feel guilty or feel bad for saying no to people, because that could be a difficulty for many highly sensitive people to say no. But we'll see that it's very important that we actually protect our peace, protect our space. And yeah, we all have a limited amount of resources, time, energy, and money. We cannot just give to others freely because we have to secure ourselves first, always. So if you enjoyed this content, please subscribe to this channel, give the video a like, and also share your aha moments and your key takeaways in the comment section so that we can uplift and inspire each other. And also share this channel with your loved ones so that more people can find this channel and benefit from the content. So thank you in advance for your participation. Right, so as I said, making work for the highly sensitive person. I will be quoting from, let's see, which chapter is this? This chapter on stress management, the HSP way, which is a very important topic for all highly sensitive people. We cannot just do stress management like everyone else. We have to do it the HSP way, or it will not work for us. So it's chapter 4, stress management, the HSP way. And I quote, so there is a subtitle, Internal and External Boundaries. As we noted in the first chapter, stress can be internal, emotions or thoughts, or external, workplace conditions. Internal or personal boundaries help us manage our sense of being overwhelmed. If we can't take care of ourselves and know what's bothering us, how will we be able to communicate any concerns to others? Nor can we expect others to honor our boundaries if we don't honor them ourselves. Dealing with people and setting boundaries with them will evolve more easily as we value ourselves enough to be aware and listen to our bodies and emotions. The key to HSP stress management is in developing good personal internal boundaries. This includes paying immediate attention when we're becoming stressed and doing something about it. We are then improving our early detection system. Most of the time, we don't notice when we're stressed because we're so busy trying to fit in, and we're too accustomed to ignoring and not seeing things as an HSP. For that reason, I urge you to read this chapter with your sensitivities, conscious of your vulnerabilities. It's a roadmap for the sensitive person with signs along the way. We have to trust and listen to ourselves. As we become more congruent, we don't block the signals of stress as much, and then we can say, I'm tired, or I'm miserable, or this feels awful and I don't want to be here. And then I will skip a section about why stress occurs. And I encourage you to buy the book and read it for yourself. I just quote a few, passages that I feel are particularly relevant to the topic, right? So there's another subtitle, What is a Personal Boundary? And I will keep quoting from that one. So I quote, recognizing what stresses us and not allowing it to do damage means seeing ourselves as a separate self from others. This defines your personal boundary. These boundaries give us wiggle room to grow and be creative. We are living beings with enough mixtures of talents, capabilities, interests, and personality style to require plenty of open vistas to sustain a lot of growth. Remember our garden, our inner self that we're caring for? Every good garden has a boundary of some kind to define what's in and what's not. We are made of many substances that grow us: earth, air, fire, water, emotions, ideas, imagination, energy. Each of these requires a space of its own to develop a unique garden identity. A poor border means havoc to the plants from predatory creatures or loss of identity from inroads by more aggressive plants. Build a good boundary to keep out external predators, water and care for the plants, ferret out innocent-looking vegetation that is really a bunch of voracious weeds, and the garden will flourish and take on a life of its own with charm, color, warmth, and beauty. But to create these boundaries, we need to know more about what we need, what we are like as HSPs. HSPs always talk about how much work it is to build and maintain boundaries. I'm getting better at it, but it's taking a while, is a common refrain. This is so because we're often tuned into everything around us, making it harder for us to step away and have distance from our environment. So again, sensing ourselves as a separate being from others, a being with needs and aspirations, is crucial. Our sensitivity and conscientiousness are positive attributes, but they can get in the way of seeing ourselves as separate people. It's important that we realize we're allowed to have a separate self and for our feelings to be valued for their own worth to us, which means we have to like ourselves enough to care about our own well being and to see choices as a benefit to us. Then we can give ourselves a loving protectiveness. This is positive selfishness, a positive self entitlement. Here are some examples of personal boundaries. I value myself enough to trust my feelings. I am capable of solving my problems. I have the right to have hope. I respect my body, feelings, and thoughts. I have the right to say that something bothers me right away. I need to listen to the still small voice that says something's not comfortable. End of quote. So, dear watcher, I will stop quoting here, but there are a lot more things to be said about boundaries, and both why boundaries could be complicated for HSPs and well, for all kinds of people who have empathy, really, especially for people who work in professions where we meet other people who are in distress, who are, who are in a vulnerable situation or position, or who are not getting their needs met, then then we have to be even firmer with our boundaries to not burn out or to give too much of ourselves to the detriment of our own health, right? So there are so many situations or so many scenarios where it could become complicated for us to set boundaries because we have so much empathy. So the first thing I want to say after quoting this one is well, as I said initially, um, yeah, we have a limited amount of resources, time, energy, money. We only have 24 hours a day, and usually we sleep like 8 hours or so of those 24 hours. So maybe 16 hours or so of time being awake, and even less being productive. So that is the first, limit. So we have to realize that setting boundaries is not something that makes us bad or less compassionate or less caring, or that we don't yeah, we want to be available for other people as well, our friends, our family, our coworkers, fighting for causes that are important to us, giving our time and energy and love and attention both to people and to causes that maybe are important to us, our spiritual practice and so forth. um, but yeah, there's a very, harsh reality that, yeah, we have a limited amount of resources, especially when it comes to time. So therefore, we cannot give ourselves, we cannot be available to everyone all the time. We cannot say yes to every demand. It's just impossible. That's not us being rude. That's not us being selfish. That's not us being egocentric or being, a bad friend or bad, whatever label, whatever attribute you put on yourself. We are not being bad or not being a good person for saying no. That's just the harsh reality of things. That yeah, we have a limited amount of resources, and we cannot give to others and be available to others all the time, because we will be draining our resources, we will be tired, we will be exhausted, we'll shoot ourselves in the foot, and we will not be able to, and this is the most important, the most dangerous side effect of poor boundaries. If we want to manifest, the life of our dreams and incarnate the fullest potential that we have as human beings, we have to have very firm boundaries, or we'll simply run out of time. That is a very harsh reality, but it's still true. We will run out of time if we give of ourselves to everyone all the time, saying yes to every demand, being available to people just because we have empathy for them, or because we like them or we love them. It's even more difficult sometimes to have firm boundaries with people we love, because we see their suffering, we feel it, inside ourselves, we want to help, but we have to help ourselves first. There's no way around that. Otherwise, it will not be sustainable. And I also speak from first-hand experience here, because I have been through a very severe burnout, and I expected people around me to step up and help me through the crisis, because I had been available to others and helping them out when they needed help. But yeah, I was on my own, just me and God. So I've had to learn the very hard way, the very very hard way, that boundaries are key. We have to be super firm. So it's better to say no too often than not often enough. Because we owe it to ourselves. We have to protect our peace. We have to protect our time. We have to protect the life that we are building. And we have to think of our future as well. Because, as time passes, as we grow older, things are not getting any easier. Past stressors will accumulate more in our bodies. Past things, past traumas we may have been through can, suddenly appear, resurface. We think we have worked through them, and all of a sudden they resurface, and we have to deal with that, because healing happens in layers. There are so many things that could happen in the future also that we cannot foresee now, because no one has, this crystal ball and like, oh, I can see everything, what's going to happen. Only God knows what will happen in the future. So we really have to be prepared for basically everything. And we have to have a very solid foundation, both a solid foundation of our identity, who we are, our worth, what we stand for, but also setting boundaries with other people. That way it will be sustainable, and people will also respect us more for respecting ourselves. So we have to give the example how we want others to treat us by how we are actually treating ourselves. And I used to have this backwards, because I had been conditioned growing up to treat others the way you want to be treated. So I was treating basically everyone with kindness, generosity, a lot of empathy, listening to people when they were going through problems, trying to be a good friend, trying to be a good person, and that backfired horrendously, horrendously. That doesn't work in this world. It doesn't work, and people will respect you less for being so available to others. So you truly have to, instead of treating others the way you want to be treated and expect they to reciprocate, because most people don't. That was a very big surprise for me. Like, hello, my turn, my turn, my turn. When will I receive my, part of what I have been sharing with others? No one cares. No one cares about you. No, we have to be super firm with our boundaries, and also always giving to ourselves first. And set the example, give the example to others, show them this is how I want to be treated. These are my standards. This is what I will accept or not from you. And we do that by setting firm boundaries. And then we can let people in little by little as they prove to us that they are trustworthy, that they are willing to reciprocate, that they are serious and committed in their relationship with us, and that yeah, they have value to offer us as well. We cannot we cannot carry the workload of building a relationship and everyone else just take a free ride. It will drain us, it will leave us frustrated, resentful, bitter, and this is a very common trap for women especially. We are being conditioned in society to be, loving, caring, look after everyone else's needs. And you can even hear my voice. I'm being a bit sarcastic here, but yeah, we are being conditioned to be, soft and feminine and look after everyone else, help everyone else, make sure their needs are met, and like make ourselves smaller, invisible, and like, oh, everyone else comes first. And that is just conditioning. We can deprogram ourselves from that, and we can learn to be more selfish in a positive way, as the book said here. Positive selfishness, positive self-entitlement. That is being assertive and communicating clearly, both knowing what our needs are and communicating clearly to others what our needs are so they can help meet those needs. Not every time, maybe, but yeah, if we don't communicate them, how will people know what we need? And also to show ourselves respect at all times. So actually, when we are setting boundaries, we are not being bad towards someone else, or we are not being, less of a good friend. Actually, we are taking care of ourselves, which is necessary for things to be sustainable. And therefore, we are also protecting the relationship. Because if we are not protecting ourselves, our own peace, our own time, our inner garden, if we don't look after ourselves and take care of this inner garden, which is so beautifully put in this book, Making Work Work for the Highly Sensitive Person by Barrie Jaeger, Ph.D., we have to take care of our own garden first. And then we can invite people to come visit us. But yeah, we have to take care of ourselves first. That is key, and that is totally necessary in adult life, and well, also as children. But the older we get, or I mean, when we are adults, we have more responsibilities. Usually, we have more stress. More demands that are put on us. We are responsible for making sure everything works in our life. Our parents will not do it for us as when we are growing up. Now it's our responsibility to make sure everything works. So yeah, there are many things that we have to juggle simultaneously, and yeah, being assertive, setting boundaries in a good enough way is key to every victory we want to have in the future. Basically, if we don't set boundaries, yeah, we will burn out and we will be stressed out and we will be resentful. That is inevitable as part of having poor boundaries. So I will give you a few examples also from clients I have worked with who are highly sensitive people and from their childhood conditioning had some difficulty setting boundaries because of their experiences growing up. Because let me remind you that the formative years, childhood years and teenage years, those create a blueprint in our consciousness, and they tell us who who we are in the world, how the world works, and what kind of experiences we can expect in our life in the future. So I have recorded a few different videos. For instance, a recent one is the importance of emotions in creating our inner maps. I'll drop that link to that video below. And others also about energy work and, for instance, get inside information about what it's like to do energy work, where I interview a client of mine who has been working more than 2 years on and off with me. I'll drop a link to that video in the description below. And there are other kinds of, yeah, there are many videos, but yeah, let's start with those. And yeah, another one that's super important when it comes to highly sensitive people is, dear HSP, you are not too sensitive. I'll drop the link to that in the description below. Super important that we flip the narrative and realize that everything that we have been told about ourselves growing up, or from our environment at any age, really, is not necessarily true. Those are just narratives. Also very important for setting firm boundaries and protecting our peace, protecting our time, protecting our resources, protecting our future is also to make sure that we align with a narrative that is compatible and aligned with our soul, our mission, our values, and not accept just any narrative as the truth just because many people around us are telling us the same thing. Doesn't mean it's true. It's just a narrative. But if we believe in those kinds of narratives that are lying to us, then yeah, one of the consequences of that could be that we set poor boundaries because we want to please other people. And that is also something that some highly sensitive people have, people pleasing tendencies, that we want to please others, which in practical terms means that we are giving our power away. Unfortunately, in the world, yeah, at least Western contemporary societies, we live in a world that believes in lack, there is this either or, either or logic, like either this or that, when in reality we could have both. But yeah, many people operate under that, and that's also why it's when we have people pleasing tendencies, we give our power away, because either we have our power ourselves or give it to others. So yeah, there are many things that could be better in this world of illusions. We can all agree on that, but we have to start with ourselves, right? So, for instance, clients I have worked with who are highly sensitive people who have had some difficulties with boundaries. They have said, for instance, like a female client told me, like, oh, when I was growing up, it was my job to make sure my mother was happy. That is not a child's responsibility, but a child could believe that. And that would make it difficult with boundaries, in adulthood. That would make it difficult because that person would probably be a people pleaser. Because if she grew up believing it was her responsibility to make her mother happy, yeah, then she could easily believe on a subconscious level that it's her responsibility to make others happy. And then she would focus, away from her own happiness and building her own, building herself up and building her own happiness, her own life, that she would probably be giving a lot to others, try to make others happy, even though that's not her responsibility. Um, yeah, and all kinds actually of dynamics in dysfunctional family systems where children have either become parentified, which means that older siblings have had to take care of younger siblings because the parents, one or both, were not assuming the responsibility as parents, and they were not, taking care of the children appropriately, or they were not present with the children when they needed their presence. And yeah, children need the parents' presence, every day. Um, or the parents were not, educating the children or guiding the children, and so an older sibling took on that role as a parent, even though they were a child themselves. But they could also have problems with boundaries, because they could have in the blueprint of their consciousness that they have to take care of others, before themselves, or they have to take care of others. That's not their responsibility, but they grew up believing they have to take care of others because, yeah, those who are supposed to be taking care of the children in this case, they are simply not there. They have not stepped up to that responsibility, and then they take on too much responsibility. And this is also a key issue when it comes to boundaries. So poor boundaries could have to do not only with not, valuing yourself enough, or not knowing what your needs are, not knowing what your rights are, and so forth, or, social conditioning for women, for instance, that we have to be loving and caring and nurturing and blah 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 blah, which can backfire because we have to be very aware that we have a limited amount of resources at our disposal, and time. Time, passes by so fast. I have no idea what happened after I turned 30, but it's like, yeah, the years just pass like super fast. Um, so yeah, we also have this subjective experience of time, and passing faster the older we get, which means that we have the subjective experience of getting less things done in a day, and the years just pass by. So if you're watching this day watcher, you're younger, you're in your early 20s, for instance, learn to set boundaries now if you haven't already, because the firmer boundaries you have from an early age, and the less you give of yourself freely to others, the more time you will have to accumulate, the kind of experience you want in your life, and the more time you will have to build yourself up and, leave a legacy in this world after you leave physically, right? Because time will run out at some point. So yeah, boundaries often has to do both with childhood conditioning, societal conditioning and expectations, and also and self-worth, self-respect, as I mentioned, but also responsibility. So if you have had to take on a lot of responsibility from an early age, that, those responsibilities, objectively speaking, they were not yours. Those burdens were not yours to carry, or those younger siblings, for instance, or those parents. Either if you were parentified, you had to take care of your younger siblings, that was not your responsibility, but you grew up believing that was indeed the case. or you were a child growing up thinking that you have to take care of your parents or make sure they are happy or make sure they are in a good enough emotional state because their parents didn't know how to regulate their own emotional state and they took out all of their frustration on their children, or they were yelling at the children, or they were not consistent in caring for the children, and the children never knew, yeah, when his dad to come home, for instance, he's always away. That kind of insecurities growing up, that can translate to poor boundaries in adulthood. Um, or the kind of this was a big one for me. I was taught, treat others the way you want to be treated. And yeah, I was treating everyone else how I wanted to be treated. But no one told me, treat yourself the way you want to be treated. And others will, look at you, how you're treating yourself. And that will tell them what kind of standards you have and, how much you respect yourself. And they will mirror that. But you can never expect more respect from others than you're giving to yourself. I had to learn that the very hard way through that burnout. But yeah, I did learn. And that's also why I'm so grateful there are books like this, Making Work for the Highly Sensitive Person, so that we don't have to learn everything by learning by doing. We can read, from other professionals who have already cracked the code and who have known how to put words into, things that sometimes are quite subtle or quite, yeah, it's not always easy to find the words, to yeah, to describe or to name what we are going through. And as I mentioned, or I explored in the previous video, language has a huge power over us, and both shaping our identity, but also shaping, our outlook on life, our outlook on, our future. And yeah, language holds a lot of key in our psychological processes. And that video is called, let's see, I was quoting from another book by Dr. Bessel Kolk about trauma. Yeah, I will drop the video in the description below. You will find it. So yeah, language also very important. So when we speak about how to set boundaries and we speak about the importance and we reframe our thinking and we understand also the underlying, psychological mechanisms at work in interpersonal relationships, it does get easier. So many highly sensitive people, we are usually more self-aware than the average person. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings because we feel things so deeply. So especially in close relationships, or not necessarily close in the sense like friend, family member, or romantic partner, but it could be close in the sense that we're interacting with them daily in the workplace, for instance, even if it's a more superficial level. But yeah, we interact with them regularly or daily, and we come to appreciate those people. We don't want to hurt them. We don't want to make things difficult for them. We don't want to upset them and so forth. These are real struggles for highly sensitive people. Maybe you're watching this, you're not highly sensitive, and you are like, why do you even bother thinking about those things? Like, yeah, for us highly sensitive people, we think a lot about those things. We don't want to harm anyone. We don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. We don't want to upset anyone. We want to be at peace as much as possible with everyone. And sometimes, well, often that means we have to be the one facilitating things for others, or we are the ones who are compromising, or we are the ones, stepping back when someone else has a more aggressive approach, which is not necessarily the best thing to do. Sometimes we really need to stand our ground, stand firm, and not say yes so easily, just to accommodate others. But yeah, that is something we need to learn and work on, and realize that the more we say no, the more we protect our resources, our own peace, our own space, which also means that we will have more leverage also in the future. So whatever surprises the future might hold, and no one knows what's in the future, only God. But whatever the future holds, we will have more leverage in any and all social setting and in all social interactions, whether in the workplace, interpersonal relationships, close relationships, you name it. We will have more leverage when we are very firm with our boundaries. That is really a key survival skill because yeah, we have to interact with other people. We cannot just isolate in our bubble, even though that would be desirable for many highly sensitive people, live on some desert island somewhere and eat, nice fruit and drink coconut water every day. Oh, I would love that. But yeah, that's usually not an option for most of us. We have to work like everyone else. We have to, produce income. We have to, yeah, we have to build wealth and, stuff like everyone else. So truly setting boundaries is a key survival skill. That is not something that we can skip. It's not some, nice to have. It's not like, oh, I'll take care of that later when I'm done with all of the other things I have to do, or that is something that, uh, an option to learn about. No, it's a survival skill. We have to learn how to set boundaries, and we have to be firm with our boundaries, and we have to say no. So something that is a great reminder for highly sensitive people. Well, empathic people with a lot of empathy in general, but I'd say even more so for highly sensitive people because we have even more empathy than the average person. We have to learn that no is a complete sentence. And I also remind myself of that often. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to explain everything to everyone. You don't owe apologies. Um, well, on some occasions, but more often than not, we apologize too much, as highly sensitive people. So we don't have to over-explain ourselves. We don't have to apologize as often. We don't have to assume that the other person knows better than we do or that they are right. Just because someone has maybe more aggressive approach or they seem so certain of themselves, and we're like, sometimes we start doubting ourselves. But know that there's a lot of manipulation going on, a lot of mind games going on, a lot of things that don't reflect at all. What's truly going on. I had to learn that also the very hard way in France. Um, and yeah, there have been some videos about that you could watch. That could help you also with your boundaries. One is called the power of perception. I'll drop that in the link in the description below. Another is the deception of perception. I'll drop the link to that in the description below. And yeah, I'm getting tired. I should set the boundaries soon. We're wrapping up this video. But there's another video also I wanted you could watch if you want to, and it's called Everything You Need to Know Before Moving to Paris. That is not specifically about boundaries, but yeah, when we have perception that is not at all aligned with reality, and we make choices based on false promises or false, narratives. Yeah, that will compromise our boundaries at some point. So yeah, I should probably lead by example and wrapping up the video and take a break, a few minutes before I keep going. So dear watcher, I truly hope that you can see with the content I have shared in this video that, boundaries are, boundaries are key to everything. Everything, boundaries are key to your inner peace. Boundaries are key to, building the life you want also in the long term. It's a survival skill. You have to be good at setting boundaries, or you will drain yourself unnecessarily, and people will take advantage of you. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. So we have to be realistic also. We cannot be nice and kind and give our empathy to everyone just because we feel what they feel. We have to separate, just like I quoted from this book. Yeah, we are a separate self. So even though, yeah, energetically speaking, we are all interconnected, but in the workplace, for instance, we are very much separate selves, separate individuals, and we have to have very firm boundaries. That's how we will succeed in our endeavors. Stay watcher, take care, stay hydrated, keep learning, and I'll see you again in another video. Bye for now.